Anyone who is plus size and has to go to the doctor knows what's going to happen, knows what the doctor's going to say, and if the doctor doesn't say it, he's thinking it. And that is, no matter what your ailment is, if you go in there because you have like a rash on your arm, it's because you're overweight. If you go because you stubbed your toe and the nail broke off, and because you're overweight. If you have an itchy scalp, because you're overweight. Now, for those who don't know, I live in Italy, and here I have trained the doctors pretty well. I always go into their clinic well prepared. I kind of research and study what I'm going in for, the symptoms, the possible cures, all those kind of things. So when I'm sitting down in front of the doctor, I know more or less what questions to ask, because I don't want them thinking that I'm some kind of idiot so they can talk to and treat anyhow. But it really can be challenging. If you've watched my channel before, some of you might know that I've been battling a problem with my knee. Now, I went to my doctor and she said, okay, well, let's take a look at your leg and let's take some pictures so that we can figure out what's going on. Afterwards, I had to wait several days to see a specialist who would then tell me what these x-rays showed and what then I would have to do. I walked into the office. He's one of the most handsomest doctors I've ever seen. I mean, this guy was so cute and he was young, and I thought, oh my God, here we go. Now, as soon as I walked in and sat down, George Clooney turned to me and he said, how much do you weigh? Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. My first instinct was to lie. I was going to lie my ass off. I don't know why I would do that. It wouldn't help me in any way. But I couldn't tell George Clooney how much I weighed. I just couldn't do it. So I just sat there for a minute and said, I'm not quite sure. It's been a while since I weighed myself and I'm not really... And he goes, that's okay. Just give me a ballpark. So I gave him a ballpark, which was still pretty high, but it was something that I could live with. Because there's no point me telling him a ridiculous number for him to look at me and think, yeah, in your dreams. So, I gave him the number and he seemed happy with that. All of this to say is that when you're plus sized, you don't only have to worry about seeing the doctor and worrying about what's wrong with you and what needs to be done to make you feel better. But you also have to go up against his prejudice, him thinking that you're that way because you're overweight, and having to say things about how much you weigh, and all these kind of things. But you know what? It's a part of life, and it's something that we have to deal with. And sometimes we do get embarrassed, but we really shouldn't. We are all built differently. Some are going to be skinny, some are going to be overweight, some are going to be obese, some are going to be tall, some are going to be short. And we fit in where we fit in. And we shouldn't feel less than. There are all kinds of struggles in this world. Yet because our struggle, if we struggle with our weight, because our struggle is visible, we carry it on us, people with their struggles think that they have the right to comment on you and to talk about you. It's crazy. And they say things and they don't even realize what they're saying. I remember my husband and I, we had moved into our new home, which was a totally new area. And so we were trying to get to know the area. We were trying to get to know our local shops. And there was a supermarket near our home. So we started frequenting this supermarket. And after a while, they got to know us. Then I went on a diet and I lost a little bit of weight. And I remember going to the supermarket and one of the ladies working on the till, she kind of called me over and she kind of whispered to me and said, I see that you've lost a bit of weight. And I said, yes, I have. And she said, well, maybe now your boyfriend will marry you now that you've lost weight. I said to her, he's not my boyfriend. He's my husband. And she said, really? And she was like taken aback. She said, he's your husband? I said, yes. Now, I wanted to say more to this woman, but I didn't. I just let it go. Because at the end of the day, what's the point? Because these kind of ideas that if you're slimmer, you can get certain things, and if you're overweight, you can't. That has never been the case for me. My weight has never got in the way of doing what I wanted to do. It might be a little bit embarrassing sometimes in certain things, but it's never stopped me from being me and doing what I want to do. I fell in love as an overweight woman. I got married as an overweight woman. I have a singing career as an overweight woman. I had my daughter as an overweight woman. Everything that has meant anything to me, I've done as an overweight woman. And it's never stopped me. But if you listen to some people, being overweight is like the worst thing ever. And like being thin is going to solve all your problems. So if a man doesn't want to be with you because he doesn't like overweight women, because he thinks you look lazy, because he thinks you're smelly, because he thinks that you got a dirty house because you must have because you're overweight. If a man thinks all of that, let him. Don't try to convince him. Don't try to talk him out of it. He can think what he wants. Let him. One of the things that I love about Italians, and that is that they have a gesture for everything. And one of my favorite gestures is this. And that means, I don't care. I don't give a damn. That's what it means. So if a guy says to you, I don't want to be with you, I don't like you, just walk away. When I was working in television, and I worked for many years on Italian TV, and on the downtime, we used to sit around waiting to be called on set. And I would sit there and listen to some of these ladies, these beautiful girls, beautiful young girls, thin, gorgeous girls. Some were dancers, some were singers, some were actresses, some were showgirls. And they were just sitting around. And I would listen to their conversation. And it was all about how they can't find anybody to love them, how lonely they were, how if they got on the scales and they put on a gram, it was like the worst thing ever. They felt so bloated, they felt so fat, they felt so... And I'm sitting there listening to them, thinking to myself, if these girls are so skinny and if they put on a gram and they feel that they're fat, what do they think about me? But that's a by and by. All of this to say that being thin doesn't miraculously cure who you are inside. We have to work on who we are mentally. We have to work on our confidence. We have to work on our self-esteem. Because if those things aren't in place, if those things aren't okay, then you can lose all the weight that you want. You're still not going to be happy because you still don't love yourself and you're still not a confident person and your self-esteem will still be low. I've seen a lot of people who have lost the weight and nothing in their life changes. They're still on their own. They're still lonely. They still can't find a job, or they thought that things would just snap into place for them. And when it doesn't, it just makes them depressed and it just makes them start eating again. We have to raise our self-esteem and our confidence. And I have to admit, me personally, I am confident. And I hate saying that because oftentimes when people say, oh, I'm confident, I'm happy in my skin, they're usually not. Because if you're really happy in your skin, if you're really confident, you don't have to beat people over the head with it. You just are. And people should just be able to see it. When you're yourself, when you're authentic, when you don't try to be a people pleaser, Because many times, that's the thing that I find with a lot of plus size women, is that we feel that we have to be people pleasers. It's almost as if we're afraid to be miserable. Because if we're miserable, people might think, yeah, of course she's going to be upset. She's upset because she's fat. Or we're afraid to be miserable because it would just highlight who we are and people will just notice that we're overweight. So to try to distract people and trying to use special effects, we're happy, we play the happy, we're jolly, and we're the people pleaser. Years ago, I worked with a woman who was rather overweight. I mean, she was severely overweight. And when I tell you that there was nothing that you could ask her that she wouldn't do. She would run up, she would run down, she would do this, she would do that. I think that after a while, people are evil and they just got a kick out of just asking her to do things so that they could see her marching and moving quickly, trying to get the job done. People are really horrible. And that's the thing. I think that she used her being a people pleaser as a shield, as some kind of protection. And I think that she preferred to be known as a doormat rather than being the obese woman. And you don't have to hide who you are. It's not necessarily going to make you be liked more. You can have an off day. You can be miserable. You're allowed to be in a bad mood. You're allowed to say, no, I ain't doing that. Of course you can. And people are just going to have to like it or lump it. So, don't be afraid of being who you are just because you're afraid that you're not going to be liked because you're overweight. There are a lot of people that aren't liked. So even if you're not liked, and so what? Not everyone is going to love you. Not everyone is going to appreciate you. And that's why sometimes we have to be careful who we surround ourselves with. Because as a plus size woman, there has been times when I've spoken about and desired losing weight. And there have been girlfriends who have said, but you know what? But your weight is who you are. You look good the way you are. You look good overweight. I don't think you should even bother to lose the weight. Now, if you hear that kind of a conversation, you have to evaluate if it's coming from a place of love or if it's coming from a place of jealousy. There probably are friends who just love you the way you are. They don't see you as being overweight. They don't see you as anything than the person that they love. And that's wonderful. But there are also those who fear that if you lose the weight, then you become competition. So be careful who you surround yourself with. There are men who don't like overweight women. And they have every single right not to. I like what I like. You like what you like. Why shouldn't a man like what he likes? I have no problem if a guy says, you know what? I prefer a slender woman who works out regularly and has a good body. No problem with that whatsoever. Now, if he's disrespectful and starts saying, I don't like an overweight woman because they're lazy, they don't want to do anything, then we're going to have a problem. But if it's just a preference, if that's what you prefer, I'm not going to get a peep out of me. I get it, I respect it. There are those who like overweight women, who actively seek overweight women. Now, me personally, I'm not really a fan of those who just want to date overweight women because then it becomes like a fetish. But there are those who, it's not a fetish, it's just that they just like women that are just overweight, that's their preference, and they have a right to like that too. And then there are those who don't have a preference either way. They're not particularly looking for an overweight woman, and they don't even necessarily like them or want one. But they've met and they've fallen in love with someone who just happens to be overweight. and they're fine with that, and they're proud of their woman. So there are all kinds of different things. There are all kinds of people in the world, all kinds of people that want different things. And we have to allow people to want what they want and not be upset about it and not be offended over it and not expect everyone to love us, because the world doesn't work that way. Thin women, not every man is going to love them. Curvy women, not every man is going to love them. So overweight women, obese women, it doesn't matter. Not everyone is going to like you. Not everyone is going to actively search for you or want you. And we have to accept that and not be so entitled sometimes and just expect that everyone should love us just because we think we're wonderful, which we are. It doesn't mean that everybody else is going to be in agreement. And talking about entitlement, we live in a world today where everyone seems to be so angry, so hypersensitive, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Men seem to be on a different level today than when they were back in my day. I don't know where they get this entitlement from. But let me tell you something. Whereas before, if a guy used to approach me, I used to either ignore him or maybe just answer, but not really wanting to engage. Now, I am sweet as pie. I don't care if he's wearing open-toe sandals and his toes are yellow and his feet are dry and crusty. I don't care if his breath is so ripe that he's dripping off the glue of my eyelashes. I don't care if his teeth are crooked and look like tombstones. And I batter my eyelids and I say, "Hi, yeah, thank you. How are you?" I am lovely. Because everyone's so angry and entitled these days. You're supposed to want to talk to them. You're supposed to. And if you're an overweight girl, you're supposed to be so grateful that a guy took the time out of his day to shout out to you, to want to talk to you. And you have the nerve to turn up your nose, to look at him like he's nothing. How dare you? I will smile politely. I will answer every question. I will be absolutely lovely. I become a girly girl. Everything. Because you ain't finding me in no ditch. You're not going to find my head in the north and my body in the south. No. So that's not going to be me. That is not going to be me. Watching all these YouTube videos and seeing how angry some of these men are, I've learned. Don't tell me twice. Don't tell me twice. I have learned. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It really doesn't. Men seem to be the same all over. So I will, I will play nice and I will be sweet as pie. Now, years ago, I was asked to be a special guest at Giro d'Italia. Now, Giro d'Italia is a special bike ride. It's a competition that lasts for several days. And they stop off at different places. I don't know. I'm not into bicycles. It's like the Tour de France. I'm not into all of that. But in Italy, it's a big deal. And it really is a big deal if you win. So years ago, I was invited to be at the last stop so that when the winner arrived, I would sing and I would end the show. Now, it was live. Remember, it was live TV. And I remember up there on the stage when we were outdoors. It's all a bit of a blur because I just blanked out. And I'll tell you why. I was on the stage and there was the presentator and we were waiting for the athlete to arrive so that I could sing and everything. The winner arrives and the presenter presents me. Now, in Italian, the word grande can mean big, as in a big glass, or it can mean great, as in a great artist. So he presented me and he said, ladies and gentlemen, we are so lucky to have with us today Angie Brown, a grande artist, a grande artist. And he did that with the action and with his cheeks like that. On live TV. Now, I wanted to headbutt this man. I wanted to become Chuck Norris and do like the double turn and the side kick. It was not funny, but I let it go. I let it go. I did like a calculation in my mind and I said, if I was to really blast this man on live TV, I think I would come off the worst. And I'm not about to do that. So I said nothing and I smiled and I let it go. What I wanted to do was afterwards, was when we got off the stage, was to tell him a couple of things, but I never got the chance to. But I haven't forgotten. And if I ever see him again, we will be having words. Or maybe, you know what? What's even better? If you want to know more about what it's like living as a plus-size woman, check out this video.